Hi everyone and welcome back to my top 500 games. We will continue on right now from where we left off and we are at number 189 and this is Sonic Adventure 2. This is a game that in recent times seems as though people have started to love to hate it and people saying about how terrible this game is. This is a game where, I suppose similar to Sonic Adventure 1, it's a game that I think the people who hate it are making such a big deal over nothing. I mean, it's not that bad. There's plenty of decent things about this game, but equally so, people can treat this game as if it's amazing, and I've got to say to them, it's not that great really. I really do have to take that sort of middle ground position when it comes to the Sonic Adventure games. But what's interesting about Sonic Adventure 2 is that it's actually Sonic Adventure 2 Battle that I played. It was the GameCube version that I played, and I was first introduced to this game from my friend Josh because he had a GameCube and he had Sonic Adventure 2 on it, and he also had some other games on it as well, and those games were part of what made me want to get a GameCube. And so I did get a GameCube, and then I showed my friend Bridge my GameCube and I showed him Sonic Adventure 2, and that made him get a GameCube, and he got Sonic Adventure 2. But as for what makes Sonic Adventure 2 different from the original Sonic Adventure, for one, there's no hub world, which I think most people agree that's a good thing. You just go from one level to the next. Secondly, instead of having 5 or 6 different characters, each with their own abilities and stuff, you instead just have groups that you can choose between. There's the hero side and then there's the dark side, and you go through both of these stories. Each one of them has 3 characters. So on the hero side you've got Sonic, Tails and Knuckles, and then on the dark side you've got Shadow, Robotnik and Rouge. And Shadow is basically a copy of Sonic, and you've got Robotnik, which is the same as Tails, and then Rouge, which is the same as Knuckles. And you basically have these series of levels that you go through one after the other, and then once you've completed that you have the final story, or the last story rather, in which you then go to complete the story. Sonic and Shadow stages are what you'd expect from a 3D Sonic game. Platforming, going really fast, grinding on rails, hitting speed boosts, homing in on enemies with your air attack, which is a very 3D Sonic thing, and all of that stuff. The Tails and Robotnik stages are kind of like the Gamma stage from the first Sonic Adventure, so you have to go through, Tails is in like this machine, this, what's it called? I forget what it's called, the Tornado is it called? In his like little airplane thing, and walks along, and Robotnik is the same in his egg machine, and you have to shoot lasers out to destroy different robots and break off certain locks and all that. And then Knuckles and Rouge's stages are the same as Knuckles' stages in the first one, which is where you have to go around hunting for the different emerald pieces, and you've got the little blinker that like leaps up to say whether you're so close to it or not, or whatever. And so you basically got these series of stages. Now, the Chow Garden in this game, I did play more than I did in the original game. I actually did play it. And the way that the Chow Garden works is that in a level, if you find the Chow Key, you will unlock the Chow Garden, so you can go into the Chow Garden. And also, in these levels, you'll find different animals that you can collect and different little glowy sticks. And you can give these glowy sticks and animals to your Chow, and the animals will transform them in a way and up their stats, and the glowy sticks will just up their stats. And what you want to do with your Chows is you want to be able to get them so strong so that they can compete in different events. The main one being races. So you might have one that can run fast, or you might have one with a high swimming ability so that if it goes into the water it will be able to travel faster. Or there might be a gliding ability where they can glide across and avoid the water bit so that they can go straight onto the climbing bit. But then of course if they can glide you don't need them to swim as much in that instance, or climb as much, because they'll hit a higher part of the wall. But that's the idea, you have to try to train them up. And also depending on who you look after them with, they will become either a hero Chow or a dark Chow, and they will go into their corresponding different Chow Gardens, so it's like the heaven and the hell one. So if you start patting them on the head with Sonic, they'll become the hero Chow type, and if you do it with Shadow or whatever, they'll become the dark Chow type. Also, each level you can replay, and you are given a variety of different tasks to do. So you'll have the basic level, and then you'll have the challenge of get 100 rings, and then you'll get the find the secret Chow. And so each level you'll have these different challenges, and each challenge you'll be given a rating. So it'll be a rating from E to A depending on how well you've done. And if you can get all A's, you can unlock Green Hill Zone, which I never did. But yay, you can do that. Number 188 is Spyro Year of the Dragon. This is the third Spyro the Dragon game, and again, I surprisingly don't remember too much of this. I don't think it differed that much from Spyro 2, but there are a few things that I do remember that do differ. I remember there's a skateboarding part where you have to ride around on a skateboard and do tricks to get points. What's funny is that when I played this game, it was around the same birthday, I believe, that I got the Tony Hawk games that my friend JP was also into. JP is a friend who I knew from the childcare centre that I went to, and so he came over to my house for my birthday. I also remember that you had to go through these other levels where you played as different characters. So for example, there was one that was a kangaroo, and there was one that was a monkey with a gun. And JP, he would we were kids, and we made like this stupid joke about the character Octo, who was a Kellogg's character. He advertised the different variety packs, and we sort of made like what would today would be called a meme about, you know, Octo's variety packs. And so we'd refer to things as Octo or refer to things as To, and we referred to drinking something as Ock. It's stupid, I know, but that's how we were. And so he would just make me laugh. He would say things like "To kangaroo, come on, To kangaroo," and it would make me laugh. But yeah, that's that. Number 187 is Sorcery Saga Curse of the Great Curry God. Now, this is a game on the Vita. It's a RPG. It's like a roguelike RPG. And let me tell you something. This is something that has applied to a few games, and something that people generally tend to like the option to do this in this game, but when it's like forced upon, like it, and that is Japanese voice acting. And it's nothing to do with Japanese language, right? Nothing to do with that. It's just the fact that I don't like subtitles in general. I don't like hearing things in languages that I can't understand. I'd rather just have something play in a language that I do understand, and, well, the only one being there being English. I have a very, very limited understanding of German. Haven't learned any of that for ages. I had a school-based level of understanding of German, but I just don't like it when you can't play English voices. It's just, to me, it's just irritating. And I know I would rather that they release the game without the ability to localize the voice acting than to not release it at all, but it's just a thing I feel worth mentioning, I suppose. Although that being said, Battle Royale is one of my favourite films, and it's in Japanese. But anyway, yeah, it's a roguelike, and it's something to do with, there's this curry that's really, really good, and the evil bad guys want the curry to take over this business and stuff. And you have to go through these randomly generated floors, which is generally what you do with a roguelike, but I mostly just wanted to rant about the lack of an English voice option, if I'm honest. Yeah, I haven't played this game too much, but I certainly did enjoy it for the amount that I did play, and I still have quite a bit to learn in regards to it, but yeah, I like the risk nature that comes with these roguelike games. Number 186 is Phantasy Star Online Episode 3, Card Revolution. Now, this is one of the Phantasy Star Online games, obviously, and I know that Phantasy Star Online has a big following, and Phantasy Star, I've noticed, has really taken this online thing seriously. Like, if you look at the old Phantasy Star games, they are just like RPGs, but the more recent ones, they're all like online games, so you got Phantasy Star Online. And this is one that didn't really take off. I know I hear all the time about, you know, Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2, but this is one I never hear anything about. But I got it anyway, and I've got to say, I had some fun with it. Even though playing the game, it's very obvious from the outset that a lot of it is based on the online component, which I never really could do because it was a GameCube game and I didn't have my GameCube connected. So there was obvious features that were centered around that, such as the different chat options and all that sort of stuff. But the way that this game worked is that it was like a strategy game with cards, but it also had this set grid, so you had to do battle with your opponent on this grid, and you collected cards, and it was depending on whether you were on the good side or the evil side, was depended on what type of cards you got. So if you were on the good side, you got weapons, and the weapon cards would allow you to attack in different directions and by different amount of spaces. And the evil side, they got monster cards, so you could put monsters onto the battlefield. And also in between turns, you roll dice to determine different factors such as your attack and defense. And so, even though I couldn't get into the online thing from a technical standpoint, as in I literally couldn't get to it, I still enjoyed the strategic and the turn-based, card-based nature of this game. I just wish that, they would focus less on this online MMO type gameplay, because I'm really not into that, and I wish that they would focus more on just making deep single-player games, because I feel that they probably could do it. Phantasy Star's a big name, they could do something there, or maybe they have and I'm just not aware of it, but okay. Number 185 is Prinny. Can I really be the hero? Yes, that is the name of the game. Can I really be the hero? This is based on a character that is a Prinny. A Prinny being a Disgaea species. If you don't know anything about the Disgaea universe, the way that it works is that Prinnies are these exploding penguins that are basically reincarnated from other creatures, and it's sort of like a lower form on the karma thing. So it's like the worst life that you led, you will be more likely to be reincarnated as a Prinny. That's the story behind it, and they're like the butt of every joke. But this game doesn't play like a Disgaea game. It's a platform game, and the story behind it is that it's something to do with Etna's cake. I mean, it's not important. It's not something that really stands out. It's something just silly, which is fine, It's something to do with Etna wanting a cake, and then you have to go and kill people for some reason pertaining to the lost cake. And what makes this game stand out is that you have 1,000 lives. I don't know exactly what happens if you run out of lives. I think it's just game over. But yeah, you have 1,000 lives, and you basically have to go through all these series of levels. And you've got, as you'd expect, different bosses and all that. It's what you'd expect from a platform game. Apart from two things to point out. One, you do have this big powerful air attack where you jump in the air and then you can shoot out all these different swords. That's like a Prinny attack. So you throw loads of swords and it causes like this line of explosion, and that's how you defeat many of the enemies. And also if you do that, the camera twists around, so you've got this different view to it. But also, and this is something that people I know have had a lot of trouble with in the past, that to me is just an interesting quirk of the game, is that you can't change your trajectory mid-jump. If you jump on the spot, you will just jump straight up. If you hold right and jump, you will do a rightwards jump. You can't jump and then sort of slow down your jump or turn around in the air. You just have to dedicate yourself towards a particular jump. And sure, it means that you don't have complete control over your actions 100% of the time, every second of the game, but it adds this level of weight to your jumping, and it adds this level of care that you need to take when making such a decision as how you're going to jump. I also remember I got to a boss which was really hard. I ended up losing loads of lives on, and it's like this weird dragon head where he's got this giant horn, and you have to sort of remember the pattern of when he's going to shoot out fire and where the fire is going to go, and when he's going to try to stab the ground, and you have to time it so well. It's hard, but I've got to say, the whole jumping thing and the whole 1,000 lives thing is something that I can totally get behind. The 1,000 lives thing is just amazing in a way. Like, no other game would do that, but this game does, and I really like it for it. Number 184 is Shaun White skateboarding. Now, if I have to give one piece of advice to anyone playing this game for the first time, it would be this. It's not Tony Hawk's. This is something that you really have to try to get used to, because if you're used to playing Tony Hawk games, this is going to cause you some trouble, because you really got to try to adapt to the controls. Now, I played this game, say, 2014, and I got it as a free PS Plus game, and the way that this game works is sort of different to how the Tony Hawk game point-wise, as well as control-wise, but point-wise as well. In a Tony Hawk game, you would have a set amount of time to get so many points, and you would have to do certain tricks and connect them in such a way. But the way that it works in Shaun White skateboarding is it's more to do with just the combos that you build up. You don't have this static number of points that you get so much, is that you do have this thing called flow, and flow as you do tricks builds up, and it is counted by a number, so you do have like this point system, but that number goes down, and so you have to sort of maintain flow, as it's called, and so that you can keep this number up high. And the reason you want to do that is that the story behind the game is really silly, but also kind of interesting as well, because you would expect it to be sort of realistic, wouldn't you? You'd expect something like with the Tony Hawk games, you would expect it to be something like, oh, you got to compete in these different challenges to prove that you're the best skater, or hey, there's a new skater on the block and they want to make it it big in the world of skateboarding, so send in your tape. No, it's not like that. Basically, the world is being taken over by this evil government that has, for lack of a better term, outlawed coolness. That's the best way I can describe it. So all of these characters are walking around with suits and briefcases, and everywhere is just flat, and you will have like certain like ledges to grind across and stuff, and if you build up a certain level of floor, you will unleash this wave of floor or something, or the best way I can describe it, coolness. And so you'll have these different characters walking around, and then once you've performed a certain amount of tricks, it will colour in the area, and by doing that, you make the characters cool again. They don't use the word cool in the game, it's just the best word I can describe. So you'll have this one guy who's walking around in this briefcase, and not in a briefcase, with a briefcase, and then your master will say, like, unleash him from this evil anti-cool energy stuff, and so you'll do it, and then he'll be like, whoa, dude, thanks for saving me, man, and you then have to do tricks to unleash this cool wave to make ramps in the roads and stuff. It's so weird, but I love it. I just have to laugh at the weirdness, and I just find it interesting. But you do learn different techniques aside from just all these different skills. But you do learn different techniques as to be able to form your own ramps. Like there's some parts where you have to control the wave of the ramp, or you have to form this grinding rail in order to be able to get from one place to the other. And the further you go, you'll unlock more stages of floor so that you can get to the different stages, which will allow you to expand different areas and unlock new areas that require certain levels of floor. And it just takes place in this open world setting, like I've already mentioned with Tony Hawk's Project 8, and the problem is still the same in that it's very hard to distinguish each place from each other because everywhere feels the same. Apart from there's a theme park, and to me the theme park stands out as so different from the rest of the game, which is a shame because it would be nice if each place sort of had its own theme going for it, but it doesn't. And if I've got any complaints to make about this game, one of them is that, for me at least, it's really tricky to try to get into the controls. There was one time where I was freeing Shaun White from this prison, and I think I was playing as him for a bit, and you have sort of like this ball, and you have to try to get out of the ball, and I didn't understand the controls enough to be able to escape out of it. I was thinking, can I just like grind out of it? But no, it's really tricky. And also, one thing I would have to criticize this game for is that some of the challenges, not the mandatory ones, but the optional ones, some of them are really stupid. Like there's ones where you have to smash all of these different posts, but in order to be able to smash them, you have to jump on them, directly on them. You can't ollie over them, or near them, or go next to them, or into them. You have to land on top of them, and it's so tedious trying to land exactly on top of these different posts. It's stupid. Number 183 is Critter Crunch, and I believe this was also a game I got on my PS3 through PS Plus, and this one I played around 2010, around the end of 2010, and this is basically a puzzle action game where you have all of these different creatures, like different insects on the top of the screen, and you have to go back and forth and use your tongue to grab the different insects and shoot them back up so that the bigger creatures can eat those ones, and if they do, then the ones above them, if they're bigger, they can eat those ones. And the idea is you want to build up this chain reaction of different insects eating different other insects, and you have to sort of rearrange them, because sometimes you could grab them and then spit them back out so that you could rearrange them in these different ways so that you could then eventually build up a combo. But it did eventually get to the point for me where it's really hard, and you also have to like feed this child version of the creature that you are by vomiting rainbows into their mouth. That is like the weirdest, most disgusting / beautiful thing ever, but you have to do that in order to progress through certain levels. It's strange, but I had some fun with this game. But I'm going to end this part here. I will continue on next time from number 182. So thank you all for listening and watching and just generally taking part, you lovely, lovely people. If you've stuck this far, you are a lovely person. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.